We had a radically different looking car, which is refreshing because quite often we hear about big upgrades coming and you can't really tell the difference. Like a tiny little flap on the wing has changed a little bit. The McLaren, very striking difference at the nose. The barge boards were different as well. Red Bull are the ultimate benchmark because they've got the same Renault engine, but perhaps McLaren have also got what should be an earlier benchmark of the Works Renault team, which is also in a rebuilding phase. And all signs at the moment are that they remain ahead of McLaren as well. So that there aren't really any excuses here, are there?
No, not at all. McLaren isn't even the best Renault-powered team yet, despite that upgrade. And the bigger problem is, of course, that they're behind on their own schedule. This is the car that they describe as the real 2018 car, the one they should have had in Australia, but for the delays they had to upgrades and the delays they had caused by reliability problems in testing. All the while they're trying to make progress, the other teams are making progress as well. So they've got to outdevelop their rivals, and that's very hard to do.
That's a really good point. McLaren made a big thing, Andy, about this being the real 2018 car. Formula One's so competitive now that those races at the start of the season are worth exactly the same amount of points as all the races after Spain. But is it really acceptable for a serious Formula One team to be basically writing off the first 4 races and then bringing its proper car?
It's not even that. I think it's almost a little bit disingenuous in that in the old days when a B-spec car came in midway through the season, it would be significantly different to the other car, whether it was introduced in active suspension or something. The cars now are different from race to race, and in some cases significantly different. So the notion of bringing a massive upgrade for one race or whatever, and that being the definitive car, is a nonsense, because there'll be some upgrades for Monaco. There'll be, I'm sure, a load more upgrades for Silverstone. At what point do you draw the line? So I think what is clear is they're not where they want to be, and they're certainly not where they need to be. This is a car that isn't going to finish on the podium as things currently stand. And for the fighting talk that they came out with, that's got to be the only really acceptable result. Bagging lots of 7th, 8th, 9th places, that's not a McLaren result, is it?
No. I think that brings us to the next point I was going to raise, which was McLaren has, if anything, been guilty in recent years of talking itself into trouble. They always want to talk a good game. And really, they did that again with this upgrade package. They left us expecting the kind of step that, ironically, we've seen from McLaren a long time ago in the past. The 2004 car was a dog to start with, and they did bring out a proper B-spec, and suddenly Kimi Räikkönen was fighting for podiums, and he did win a race, I think, at Spa that year. Is it a bit of a myth now that these upgrades can make that huge step? Because like Andy says, Ben, everybody's bringing new bits to every race. So should the teams maybe not raise expectations in the same way?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. You can see now the Honda engine's been removed as the excuse for all ills. They're not as competitive as they thought they would be, and that creates pressure on everybody to try and make up the gap. And McLaren should be a front-running team. As Andy says, podiums and wins really are the target, and at the moment there's just no chance of that happening. Really, Alonso is the one that's making them look better than they are. He's managed to score points with some opportunistic races so far, but in terms of pure pace, at the moment they're not really any better off than they were with Honda last season.